Hopefully I got all of that set up correctly, and if so, I should be live right now. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. I think. Oh, yep, I'm getting the feedback because I haven't opened the browser. It's definitely going now. Not getting my chat up in OBS though, so let me see if I can fix that. All right. Hey, everyone. So, if I do anything throughout this stream that, or try to do anything that is not showing up on the screen, let me know. I tried a bit of a more advanced setup here in OBS where I can relatively easily switch between different applications. Like here I have Blender open, and then finally I have the actual Mojin website open where I can put in route trajectories and get AI generated motion capture like animation out, which is what I'm using in this project. So I might forget to click on one of these. I'm going to try my best to keep up with myself here, but if I move on to another program and the previous one is on the screen, let me know in chat, because there is a chance that since I'm doing this for the first time here, I might forget to click over and change the scene in OBS. All right, so I did a stream, or I attempted to do a stream back during the State of Unreal a week or two ago, and that did not turn out too well. I was having network issues. I have all of that sorted out now. Things should be running much more smoothly, but I actually unlisted that video just because it went so terribly. In the start of it, I did show where I was at with a motion matching setup inside of Unreal Engine. And this setup here, this project, is something I'm going to continue to develop until it's ready to be the basis for a new tutorial series on the channel. And I'm planning to give you guys all of the animations that I generate under a, gosh, I can't remember the name of the exact license that the non-commercial Mojin animations fall under, but I'd like to try to work it out so that I can provide you guys with access to the animations under a non-commercial Creative Commons license. I can't promise anything more than non-commercial right now, so that's the plan, but I'm nowhere near having a full locomotion system yet. And while I still plan to continue some of the Dev School locomotion tutorial series videos, there are a few more things I want to do there. While I continue to work on those, and then after I wrap that up, and if I still have work to do on this project, I want to start streaming progress here regularly to show you guys where I'm at and be putting stuff out on the channel and interacting with you all while I work towards being ready to do a new in-depth locomotion system tutorial series. So I've been talking for a while here, and it's not too exciting. I apologize for that. So let's take a look. I did a quick update back in that previous stream, but since that's unlisted, I'm going to go through the same stuff again now. So you'll probably see a lot of splines here, and if I just click simulate, what you're going to see is some characters get spawned and follow these different splines. And I'm doing that because I'm using a service provided by the company Motorica called Mojin, and it can be used to generate locomotion animation. you can pass in an animated root trajectory and get out an animated character. And so a lot of the work that I've done in this project thus far has to do with getting characters to follow splines. And that way I can get all the root trajectories that I need for the animations that I want for motion matching. And it's been a couple of weeks since I've been able to work on this, so I'm really hoping to make some significant progress during this stream because I'm at a bit of a threshold point right now where I think this system for following the spline is finally good enough to start creating lots of animations to begin implementing. I've created a few animations already, and I have done a couple of test implementations, but I think we're ready to start doing some stuff in bulk during this stream, which should be pretty fun. So, for those of you who haven't seen any of the Mojin stuff yet, what the process will look like is that I'm going to record a root trajectory inside of Unreal, and then, let's see if I can get this scene switching properly, switch into Blender, where Motorica has they have a file that I'm inside of right now, and the premise is that you animate this skeleton and export an FBX with the right settings to upload to their site. What I can do is I can import an FBX exported from Unreal. This isn't the most streamlined process, and I'm probably going to try and see if I can streamline this before I do any full-on tutorial videos, but we're still prototyping, so I'm not super concerned with that right now. We're going to bring the FBX in, constrain this skeleton to the one exported from Unreal, re-export it from Blender, and bring it into this website here, where I can upload the file. I'm really tripping over my tongue here. I apologize for that. And I have it up on my stream. I don't actually have it up on my computer yet. Let's see. Okay, I'm using this browser. Okay, here we go. So right now it's just showing a straight trajectory, but I can upload a trajectory. I think the button is cut off a bit with how I have things set up, unfortunately, but there's an upload button up here. So I can upload the FBX, get it to follow along a trajectory. I can demo that now, actually, if I just choose one of the files that I already have set up here. So I've already gone through this process. So I have, let's see. Here's one of the spiral animations that I've created, or one of the trajectories that I've created. And so I uploaded that trajectory. This was originally part of the spiral we saw in Unreal Engine. Exported to Blender, mapped the Motorica skeleton, position, rotation to the Unreal, and then out into Mojin. So this is Motorica Mojin, the URL. Let me take a look and see. It's a bit different than the backend that I'm inside of right now, but I'll put the link in chat. And I am using, can't recall their name for it, but it's the version with a longer animation generation time window. Which is not free, but I believe there's a way to access a shorter time window as well. But there's the link. And so this is the overall pipeline. And so going back into Unreal Engine now, if I go ahead and play inside this viewport, I have some basic motion matching that I've started on. And when I say basic, I mean basic. This is being motion matched, but there is not much coverage at all. There's actually more coverage than I remember there being. I thought that I'd still only had spiral coverage. But it looks like I have a bit more inside of here. And the legs do look a bit strange right now. And that's because of how I'm performing blending currently. So if I head over into the animation blueprint that I'm using, let's see, do I even have blending turned on in this node? Okay, I do not have blending turned on right now. So I have a mystery control rig, which won't be a mystery in a couple of minutes here. I'm just going to turn that off. And so this is the raw motion matching node output with foot placement node, I think. And so you can see the jitteriness that is here, and that's just because it's switching to different poses, and this isn't what it's supposed to look like or how it's supposed to be used. What you do is you take and you add a blend time. The default, I believe, is 0.2. And that looks pretty good. So I had an idea. And to display it in full, I'm going to turn off the blend time on the motion matching and set this control rig to 1. Now, it looks best when there's some blending on the motion matching, but to demonstrate what this control rig does and the effect it has, I'm keeping the blend time to 0 on the motion matching node. And what we'll see here is that there's blending happening on the movement of the character and what looks like a bit of secondary motion. And that's because of this control rig here. And it's something that I am experimenting with. And it's the idea of doing a damped spring interpolation on the bone transforms for the character. So I'm doing a spring interpolation in control rig on different groupings of bones with different settings. I read into issues when exposing these settings into the animation blueprint, so I have to go into the control rig. That might work better now. I initially set this up in 5.3, and I've since moved this over into the 5.4 preview. But I have a function that I've made here that takes in settings. This velocity weight I'm not even using right now, so that can be discounted. So it takes in an array of bones, a strength, and a critical damping value. It also takes in an array of interpolate location indices. And this is just a way to tell the function to not only interpolate the location, the rotation of the bone, but also the location. Now the children inherit the interpolation. So this only is going to be used right now for the pelvis. So if I just clear this array, we can see that only the bone rotation is being interpolated. And okay, that's strange. The last time I tried that, the pelvis was in the ground. I'm just going to put that back on the way it was, though. So again, I haven't really tested much of this control rig since 5.4, other than to, know that it works. But it's a very, very basic setup. Just a single function here with a couple of spring interpolate nodes. We're checking if the current index of the array, we run a for each on the input item array, matches the current interpolate location index according to the index of the for each array. So we just check to see if those match, and if they do, and then we select the interpolated location. And I don't have settings set up for the location yet. I think they ended up being a bit different than rotation. So I haven't expanded the function to support that yet. This is a very early prototype. Then we either use the interpolated location or just the previous location. And then we set the new transform for that bone. And so this interpolation does a pretty good job of adding some subtle secondary motion, or not so subtle, depending on how you have the settings set. I want to do a tutorial on this once I finish this system, this implementation, but I think there's definitely some more I can do. I haven't had a chance to work on this since the last stream that I did, which is not currently up on the channel. But that is the control rig, and that's the premise of it. And I think it looks best when there is a bit of blending on the underlying motion that goes into it. But another thing that I did discover is that this works fantastically, in my opinion, for doing pose blending between different poses, such as blending from an idle stance to holding a weapon. It's not going to manage the actual transition or grabbing anything, but the kind of motion of the arms looks quite good. So there's a lot of uses for this, for switching stances and such, that I want to explore before I finalize that system. So the end result with both blends active at the same time, I think it looks pretty good. There might be a bit more adjusting to do, but I don't want to spend this stream fine-tuning those values. I want to move on to the main part of the plan here, which is getting more animations. And as you can see, we definitely don't have an idle with the way the feet are moving around right now. So let's take a look, because I need to remind myself as well at the current motion database. So yes, it's very obvious that I originally only had spirals in here. Yep, so I had spirals in here. I was testing those. I threw in the Unreal Engine idle, so I guess that is in here. And then I threw in another animation that I've made previously. But I do want to swap this out. It's a full dance card animation with stops and then starts at turn, because this is only forward. I guess there's 45-degree increments, so maybe it would be 8 directional. But I wanted to get finer control over those animations specifically by splitting them out, and that's what we have here. If I move over here, we can see that I have this set of splines here that are being followed, and I guess that is another thing to look at. Gosh, there is a lot to try and show here. I do want to get the different aspects of this system up on the screen at least once, so that you guys can, it's not going to be anything I'm going to show that you guys can follow along with, probably, but I want to give you guys an idea of where I'm trying to go with my setup here. And so each of these is a separate spline. If I can just manage to click on it. So there's a single spline for each angle. And then there's characters placed into the level with settings for how they follow the spline that they are assigned to. There's 2 characters for each of these, one that stops at the midpoint and one that does not. And I did not see your question. I am using 5.4. I'm using the preview version of 5.4 that you can get now in the Epic Games launcher. I started this project in 5.3, but I've since switched to 5.4. Though I haven't done a lot of work in it yet since switching to 5.4. Okay. So, of course, there are splines here, and they do inherit from a class that I created. This is all Blueprint so far. I haven't done any C++ yet. They all inherit from this Motion Spline base class. And all it does is implement a spline path component. That way, anything that is running off of the motion spline, that like the controller for the characters that's sampling the spline, can access this same spline path component for any class that gets derived from this motion spline base. That's important because you probably saw the spiral that I have right here. And that's because I've also implemented a preset motion spline class that inherits from the motion spline base class, and it has some actual functionality in it inside of its construction script. So if we look at the construction script right here, inside of it, we clear all the spline points and then perform a switch based on this enumeration here, which just has a few types. I haven't added everything I want to add yet. There's a spiral, a snake, and a turn. And what this does is, based on the enumerator, it runs a function. And I've created custom functions for each of these, I'm just going to say path types, with settings that can be configured. So if we look at the details panel, we can see the settings for a snake trajectory, for a spiral, for a turn. And so I've actually implemented the logic, for example, for the spiral here, to create a spiral mathematically. It's a bit of a mess, and don't ask me how this math works. I actually don't remember. I did a lot of copying from the internet and used some assistance from ChatGPT to work that out. But it works. And so I'm not going to touch it. And this creates our spiral. There's one for a sine wave, which I've just named snake because it is that snake-like movement trajectory. And then there's one for a turn, which we saw. And this is the simplest by far. All we do is a little bit of vector math with some rotation. So as we see here, we give it this is called a turn distance. It should really be called segment distance. And then we have a turn angle. So like I could change this angle to 10 degrees and it's changed. I could change the distance to 600 and the segment distance changes. And so I threw that together to make it a little bit easier for me to make these turns and get them exact without spending forever dragging spline points around. So this is coming quite useful already. And the bulk of this spline following logic takes place within the motion spline AI controller, which has quite a bit of blueprint scripting going on in it. And I do not need this print string anymore either. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to walk through this relatively quickly. Okay, so do I think that motion matching is worth using in an FPS game? It depends. From a first-person view, probably not. Though again, it depends, and it could work. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. It's really just a question of, is the time invested into motion match locomotion worth the amount of time that the player is going to spend looking at their feet, if they can even see their feet in the first place? I think there's certainly more of a place for it in a true first-person system. But that answer I just gave only applies to the first-person view model. And so you're probably aware that there are a few different ways to approach character animation in an FPS game or any first-person game. You can have a singular first-person view model where you have your first-person animations and nothing else if it's a single-player game, for example. But you could also have a separate third-person view model that doesn't run for the client, but runs for all other clients. So if I'm player A and I'm playing in the game, I see my first-person view model on my client, but player B, when they're looking at me, sees a third person model because you need that third person animation. And in most cases, that third person animation isn't going to look great from the first person camera perspective. So what a lot of games will do is they'll have two different animation systems, animation kind of instances, one that runs client side, and then one that runs, I'm sorry, let me restate that. One that runs client side for the player controlling the character. In this case, let's say character A. And then one that runs client side for all other characters that aren't being controlled by the current player. There's another option which is referred to as true first person in a lot of cases, where the third person view model is the first person view model and vice versa. The animation logic isn't separate for the player controlling the character and the other characters being looked at. Everything uses the same animation system, and the third person animations are the first person animations. So in either of those second cases, where you have a separate third person model or you're doing true first person, I think motion matching could be a fantastic fit in a lot of cases. And so it kind of then just becomes, is it worth doing motion matching in my third person game? Almost. Of course, any other character NPC, they're not going to be as close up as yours would be in a third person if you're in a first person, but I'm the kind of person who would err on the side of personally trying out the motion matching approach because I think that could look great. And I like making character locomotion look great. That's why that's turned into a main focus of this YouTube channel thus far. So I'd say it's up to you, but I would say that motion matching can definitely be worth using in an FPS if you have a separate third person view model or are using a sort of true first person model for the way you're handling your animations. And it's not like a one or other kind of choice. It's not the traditional state machine approach or motion matching. Motion matching is just this node right here, and also this node right here. And these two nodes are animation graph nodes, of course. And so they can go anywhere in an animation graph. They can be the main thing in your animation graph and just be followed up by some IK and then an output pose, or they can go inside a state machine. Or they can be blended with a normal animation sequence. Anything you can do. I meant to get a different node there, but the point being, okay, here we go. So point being, anything you do with this node right here, or this node, anywhere you put this node or this node, you can do the same thing with this node. It does need this node elsewhere in the graph to function properly, but you can take this and you can have a motion database for your pivoting and just do motion matching for pivots, or just do motion matching for stops, or just do motion matching for something else. So you don't have to just go all in on motion matching or go all in on playing animation sequences through sequence players or blend spaces. So you can give it a shot, try it out, and you can do it within a state machine structure that you could also take a blend space approach in or a sequence player approach in. I'd say it's definitely worth experimenting with to figure out if it's worth putting more time into. Okay, so in the AI controller here, we track a delta time variable, and then we go into a sequence. And so this top section is just mostly setting references. We get a motion spline character, which is set for each spline, I believe. I think. Okay, actually, I've refactored this a couple of times, so I'm trying to remember what I settled on. So let's actually take a look at the motion spline character. On begin play, we check this motion spline variable, and we actually set that per instance in the level. And if this character has a motion spline, we get the motion spline's movement settings and use them to update the character movement component's movement settings. And these are just stored in a strict that the motion spline owns. It's part of that motion spline base class. And then we set this value initialized to true. And in the moments right now, I'm unable to answer the question as to where this motion spline. Oh, of course, this has access to the character because it is the character being controlled. Wow, I had a brain fart there, everyone, live on stream. I saw this variable and I was thinking, well, where do we send this reference in? And well, that might still be a good question. Okay, in an event that was off the screen. No wonder. Those were really far away. So that's when this gets set. There's my own question about my own system that I haven't looked at in 2 weeks answered. So I apologize for that hiccup there, everyone. When on the possess event, we cast to the motion spline character with the possessed pawn and set this reference. And on begin play, we run a console command to show the splines to, just because that helps to be able to watch what's happening and test that. And then on tick, we set delta time, and then we get the values we want from this motion spline character. We first check if it's initialized, and if it's true, then we set all the initial values. I did it this way instead of all of this off of begin play or on possessed because sometimes things just don't get set in the correct order. And so you find that the character hasn't been spawned in if you're spawning and I didn't always have it placed in the world or this or that, and having a bunch of concurrent logic that needs to happen on begin play in a certain order inside different objects is a recipe for things going out of order and getting messed up. This is not the cleanest way to do this. It would be better to implement an event of some sort and have a listener, but this is a prototype and it's not meant to be running during actual gameplay. It's just a utility meant to run in the editor for us to get our route trajectories. So I haven't focused much on optimization or the most proper way of optimizing the logic here. So we set the motion spline that we're following. We get the data, which is a spline data struct that I made up for this. And that's just any interpolation speed on the input. With 0, it assumes there's no interpolation. An error radius for following the spline. Whether or not it should follow the curve of the spline, or if it should just move to the next spline point. And then finally, if it should a delay time for each spline point, which if 0, again, assumes there's no delay and doesn't delay. So that is, of course, useful to have. Then we set our point index to 1, because we're always supposed to be at the first point of the spline, index 0, and so this spline index is supposed to be the second point in the spline, or index 1. This isn't beautiful code by any measure, guys, but it works well enough, so I'm running with it for the time being. Finally, we set our initial actor location, run a delay so that I have time to go into a take recorder and press record, and then set can move. Off this sequence, the second thing we do is we check can move, and if it's true, we perform all of our logic for following the spline. So let's try and speed run this. First, we set this distance float here, and let's try and speed run it while cleaning it up too. Okay, so distance. This is calculated by getting the distance between the current actor location variable and the actual actor location. So of course we set this variable later on right here. So it's always lagging a tick behind. So we can determine the distance traveled between the previous tick and the current tick. So we get that and we add it onto our distance float and set the new distance and increment it. Next, we have a branch here and we're checking a condition. We are checking if the distance along the spline at the current spline point is greater than our current distance. And if it is... Okay, I'm sorry. So we get this motion spline point index. And so this is an index of all the points along the spline. Looking at the spiral, let's see if I can find the first point here. Yep, so this would be 0. This would be 1. This would be 2. This would be 3. And so on and so forth. So we're tracking which point is next all the time inside our AI controller. Because in a lot of cases, we don't care about the curve in between the points. We just care about the next point because the line is completely straight. So we get the index of the point ahead of the current one, get the distance, and check if our distance is greater. If it is, we've messed up. Well, we haven't messed up. We just need to increment because we're behind. And if this is true while this condition, checking if our current distance is less than the current index. So both of these conditions are true. That just means that this should be incremented. I'm doing a terrible job at explaining this right now. It's been a while since I looked at this and my brain is not working. I've apparently done too much math over the past 2 days to logic this properly. And that was intentionally a joke there to say it that way. It did not come out like that though. The joys of doing this live. So after that, our motion spline point index is updated so we can get the location at our next point and set the target point location. Then we draw a debug sphere. And then we get the distance along the spline at our target point and set a target point distance. Next, we get our predicted stop location according to our character movement component. We add that to our actor location because this return is local to or relative to the actor location, the character location. So we add that together to get the global space stop location. Draw another debug. And finally, we check, is the target point along the spline, does that distance equal the stop location? Or is it less than or equal, more accurately, within an error threshold of 10? Does it equal within an error oh my gosh, I really cannot talk. Wow. I'm going to slow myself down here because I'm really saying this in all sorts of odd ways. And yes, this can be built in 5.2. This is less than or equal to 10. We, again, increment the index. That's interesting. That probably should be fixed. That's an oversight on my part. So I'm glad things work because they do. I'd expect that to break things completely, but it works. So I'm going to move on and pretend I did not see us incrementing this in 2 separate places. It should only be 1. Gosh, that's scary. Okay, so this is just checking if we stop right now, are we going to land on the target point? If so, then we should delay. If we're meant to. We also want to check if we're approaching the last point. And if so, we just want to stop. But if not, then we're going to check, are we going to delay? If true, set input to 0 and call the point reach delay event, which just sets can move to false to prevent the tick. Delays for that amount of time, then sets can move to true. And so That brings us to our next branch here. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, that brings us to our next line of execution. So if this was false, we just move on. And yes, this is testing motion matching in 5.4. It's a bit more than testing. This is a project I started on with 5.3. I have moved to the 5.4 preview and I continue to iterate on it. It is going to be the basis for a new 5.4 motion matching tutorial series once I finish the locomotion system. So this finally, where were we? Okay, so next we check if we should be following the curve. And again, it's a question of, do we just move to the next point or do we follow the curve between the points? And if we follow the curve between the points, then we sample the spline at our current distance plus an increment that matches arrow radius. That could be its own setting, but it works fine like that for now. Then we set our current target location. But if that's false and we just care about the next point, we get the target point location that we set previously and set our current target location with it. And draw a final debug sphere at the target location that we're trying to reach. And actively pointing the input at. And then we draw an input arrow as well. Can't remember what that's for. I think that is, yeah, I guess that's for the rotation that we were going to end up with. I don't know. It's been a while. It's not too important. I'm not even sure if this works, the debug arrow. So finally, we get to our calculation for the input vector, which we pass into an add movement input node. We get our current target location, subtract our current location, normalize the vector, and this gives us a vector with a length of 1, a magnitude of 1. I mean, both terms apply really, and they're just fine. In the direction that we wish to move in the direction specifically between our current location and the target location. So we either use it directly if input interpolation speed is not greater than 0, or if it is greater than 0, we interpolate it with an interpolation speed according to the settings for the spline. And that's that. That is the logic. A bit precarious, and I'm a bit confused as to why it even works, but it does. So I'm going to close out. And now that's pretty much what I've implemented. There is the motion database in the motion database configuration for motion matching, but we're going to be going in and out of those files a lot in this stream, I hope. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So what now? Well, now we need to get these route trajectories turned into animation sequences that we can export from the engine. So to do this, I'm going to use the take recorder, which is a pretty useful tool, though it has some limitations that I'm not that much a fan of. It's under the cinematics section of the window drop down in the top toolbar right here. The limitations being if we want to record a actor's motion in the level, which we can, and that's great. It's fantastic that we have this. We have to drag it from the outliner into the take recorder. Now, there are sources for like any actor. You can set a class and have it sample a radius, but it's just not able to find stuff in my testing that's spawned, which sucks. I wanted each motion spline to spawn its own character or a set of characters with different settings and have it all encapsulated inside the spline and not have to manually place a bunch of characters into the level and assign them. But that's what I ended up having to do here. So I have a bunch of characters here. And I've done an adequate amount of organization to be able to grab quickly the ones that I want. I already got spirals, so I'm just going to grab all these turns. And now I have a ton of actors in the take recorder. I want to make sure I set the frame rate, which is going to be 30 frames per second. And I'm now going to hope that the animation sequences this outputs are named according to the actor, and if not, we're going to have to do some deductive reasoning to name them properly and sort them as we export, which will unfortunately be quite tedious. But I'm actually going to just start a new scene if I can. Just looking at the settings here. All right, well. Okay, animation actor name. Here we go. I'm just going to set that to actor. Okay. So now I'm going to click simulate. We have a 3-second delay. Oh, whoops. Okay, let's cancel that because we have a 3-second countdown that we do not want. Okay, let's set that to 0. Let's play and hit the record button. And now we're recording into a sequence all of these highlighted actors here. So now if I browse to this and browse to animation, here we go. Animation sequences for all of those named after the actors we were recording. So here we have our animations. And now we do have an issue where force root lock is turned on. Or there's a bit of a delay there at the start. And at the end. So, firstly, I'm going to bulk edit these. Now, they changed the naming of this, and it's always difficult to find now, since I'm not used to it. Edit selection in property matrix is the new name of the setting. I think they changed that back in 5.3. And do let me know. I have a content browser out here. I'm actually going to check this over in OBS. Okay, yeah, so you guys cannot see the contents browser that I've undocked with the way I have the scene set up here. So, if I open the content drawer instead. Okay, yep, that's showing up. And then if I dock into the layout. Okay, so if I actually dock it here like that. Okay, now it shows up. So I'll do the old Unreal Engine 4 approach here. So I'm going to select all of these. I guess they're all already selected here. So I'll just search. Okay, so enable root motion, that can be off, that's fine. What I'm looking for is force root lock. I'm going to set that to false and save all of these. And now it's time for probably the most tedious part of this. Cutting these animations. And I actually did lose track of where they were at. Darn. I've moved this around a couple of times. That's the date, so here they are. Okay, cool. So what I don't have here are the 180-degree turnarounds, because I have not yet found implemented a way in the AI controller to control the turn direction of the character, and it can go either way. So I'm going to record those separately with some custom splines and see if I can manually get to the desired functionality that way. So, okay, I might also cheat with like 179.9 degree turns too, and I might be able to force that with being a positive or negative to get the turn direction, clockwise or counterclockwise. And that's going to be close enough that motion matching won't give us any issues. So I'll probably try that first. Anyway, I'm going to open up all of these and cut them. We could make an animation modifier to do that with C++, but I haven't done an animation modifier of all things in C++ yet. And so I don't want to make that the focus of the stream. So we're just going to go through the work, even though it's a bit tedious, and cut these down before we bring them over into Mojin. So let's see, I need to, there we go, open a new window. So I'm just going to open all of these up. Okay. You know, I actually don't think the pauses at the end are going to be that big of a deal for some of these. Some of them I noticed had turned in odd directions at the end there. And I don't think it's the one that had this delay. So these are all fine. Mojin is going to ignore the pause at the start, and the pause at the end can just give us stopping and idling coverage that we can eventually cut out of the final animations if we want that to be, or at least the idling out if we want that to be its own separate thing. But I'm going to just check all of these. Was that 180 degree? Okay, it was. I guess I had one of those that was left in there. Is this another 180 degree? No. Okay, that's like our 135 or 160 something. Okay, so let's see. So that one stopped fine. If this is one that does not have the delay, and if it worked fine, yep, it did. Okay, yeah, angle got a bit messed up on the stop there. So what I really care about is the pivot. And this is all forward facing. I am not thinking about strafing yet with my coverage. So what I just want is the start and the pivot. Oh, okay. Okay, yep. So that's another point about the Mojin system, is that it ignores, from what I've seen, it ignores the frames at the start of the animations if it's just still and starts with the motion. And so that is why I had a forward stop and continue. If you noticed that earlier, is because it's going to start with the motion, but if the stop is in the middle, it keeps that, does the stop, does the idle. And so that's why I had that. Okay, so here's another one with a turn at the end, and this is logic I can address in the AI controller. But I'm more interested in just getting to implementing these animations during this stream. And I'm worried if I touch too much in the AI controller, it's going to break things because it's a bit precariously positioned in terms of the integrity of its logic right now. I'm getting closer. I care most about the pivot, so I'm not being super exact with the cutoff at the end there. We don't need all that motion. It's just good cycling coverage if we end up using it. Or I might end up eventually cutting the animations closer and having closer to the points of interest, the pivot, and having separate cycle captures. So for those of you who've joined, I'm using Mojin, which can take in a route trajectory and output a AI-generated locomotion animation. So what I'm doing right now is I'm generating trajectories in Unreal Engine through a system I showed earlier in the stream, and I'm clipping them so that I can export them and use them with Mojin. Would think that it would want to cut where my mouse is actually at. I should be getting this in the first try, but oh well. Not sure why it's acting strange. I can just go a little bit further back, because that'll still keep the pivot. Yep. And it is really should be cutting that with where my mouse is at. So I don't know why it's ending up like that. Unless there are that many frames that I'm just not accurate enough at this zoom level. Okay. Okay, so we're back into the paused ones, I guess. Or no, that was just the end of one playing. Didn't rotate around in an odd way, though. So I'll leave it be. Alright, I guess I'll be thorough. I'll cut it. It's not that much more time. Getting a bit better with my positioning here. About 307, so 304. Okay, that should be good. And I'm going to try to get the deceleration out of this, or I guess I can just tag it out and do that final processing on the final animations where needed. So if the trajectory isn't messed up, I'm leaving the extra timing for the most part here because I'm going to wait for like that sort of animation timing and clipping. I'm going to wait for the finalized generated animations and do cleanup later on after the prototyping phase to optimize animation length with regard to coverage. So all of the ones that do have the pause, the trajectories are not messed up at the end. That's an insane offset on where I click compared to the actual frame and where it's at. That's what was giving me so many issues at the start, is that I wasn't reading the actual text in the right click menu. So I'm seeing, okay, frame 203 is about where we want to cut. Then I right click on frame 203 and it's giving me frame 245. So I have to get like 42 frames over, and 201's close enough. So I don't know what's going on there. It might be a bug. Probably is a bug with the engine and or the editor. So 205, so that 200 frame, it's probably going to be the same for all of these because they were all traveling the same distance at the same movement settings. Almost there, guys. Almost there. About 1/3 of the way through the tedious steps. And I'll have more trajectories to probably do afterwards. I never said this was going to be a super exciting stream. Just that it was going to be a stream. Yeah, I'm not even checking these. I know it's at 200 point now. Now it's going where I click. That's strange. So this is the one I mentioned where we start forward. And this is actually just has no delay. So this is going to be our longest continuous forward one, which is going to be a good one to have. Eventually I'd want to process these animations into loops, match start and end poses to something common for uncommon idle, the common mid-cycle step for right foot and left foot for looping, or just try to find those common poses, because having animations that can loop will help motion matching actually. It would allow me to cut down the length of these as well, focus on shorter clips, but with a ton of coverage. So yeah, while we're waiting for Epic to come out with all of their animations, I'm moving forward, and I'm going to see how many I can get by the time Epic releases theirs. And this way I can define exactly what coverage I have too, though I'm so looking forward to like the I'm going to say non-locomotion. Technically it could be considered locomotion, but all of the climbing, mantling, vaulting, and jumping animations that Epic has in that pack that'll be coming a few months after 5.4 motion matched, because that'll be super, super cool. Okay, so we've processed all of our route trajectories. So now it's just a matter of exporting them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And export these as FBX files. So yeah, this will be a lot of animations to process, but I'm hoping it gives us some good, quick turn, sort of forward-facing pivot coverage. That's what I'm aiming for here. We have the stops, and then the starts again at angle, so that will hopefully give us full start coverage. I think I did, well, we can count, so we can count. I think I did more than the standard 8 directional movement, though. So there should be a lot of good coverage here. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the starts look like, and then what the quick directional pivots look like. And I believe I did them in 12.5. No, I did them in 22.5 degree increments. So it would be a 16 directional locomotion, I guess. You guys see my mouse moving, but I guess you don't see the file browser coming up because I'm just having the applications directly being recorded in OBS. That way I can really easily just manage things. But those are all exported to the file I want them in now. And so now if I switch to Blender, here we go. And I can plug these in. I mean, not plug these in, import them. Kind of similar terms. Used to talking about Unreal Engine nodes and blueprints, I guess. Okay, so let's see. Motion Spline, that's the folder. All right, so I'm now just importing these into Blender. And I'm going to start with these ones that I've named Start Stop. I'm going to see if I can select a ton of these all together. Actually, that might not be the best idea. Yeah, probably better to do these one at a time. You can see the one that I cut the beginning at and how it's offset from everything else, but that's fine. That doesn't really matter. But yeah, I am going to unfortunately do these one at a time. I could maybe save myself some pain if I set the Mojin skeleton up with the character in Unreal Engine, but I still think the root pwn is named differently, and I haven't tested putting that FBX directly into Mojin. I should definitely do that though. So we're gonna go the one at a time route, unfortunately. So we'll start with the first animation in the file here. This one is just moving straight, and we're going to work our way through. And this will go really quickly once we do it the first time, because I just have to set up a couple of bone constraints. Luckily, I have tested this full pipeline before, so unlike the previous streams of trying to work with Mojin and motion matching in Unreal, I have an established pipeline for moving animations around between Blender and Unreal and such, and so I won't get stuck in Blender FBX export limbo or whatever for the next 2 hours, guys. So we're going to use a copy location and a copy rotation modifier separately. So we're going to copy the location and then copy the rotation. And we're going to copy the location on X and Y, but not Z, and the rotation on Z, but not X and Y. And now, it's going to be hard to see with just the forward one, but we are copying the rotation as well. You know, it was facing forward along the Y. Now it's facing forward along the X. We're just kind of, I'm just kind of running my way through, getting as much coverage as I can. I'm going to worry about animation starting facing the proper axis later on, because that's not going to affect the motion matching currently. So now, with this Motorica route selected, I'll just export the FBX. I'm not sure if it's going to show you guys the export dialog. I guess not, but what's important is I'm choosing to only limit the export to the selected objects to armature, and under the armature dropdown, actually no, it's under the animation dropdown, the bake animation, I'm unchecking key all bones, NLA strips, or stripes, no strips, I can't read I guess, all actions, and force start and keyframe. So all of those 4 are unchecked. And now I just have to name this. And that was my mistake. I forgot to copy the name of the file when I imported it. In this case, I do remember where it was at, which is good. We were at, let's see. Character turn 0. So I'll toss this into the, I guess it's the root output folder. Okay. I'm now going to do a test run before I go through this on all of the animations inside of Blender. So let me switch over to Mojin. So I'm going to choose the file to upload. In this case, it's going to be that character turn 0, which is just running, jogging forward. So the animation process itself is a little bit tedious, but it is a lot less time consuming than animating by hand, which I would not be able to do myself. I do not have the experience animating to make anything good in anything close to a reasonable amount of time. All right, so we're going to wait for this to upload and hope that it does. Otherwise, I'm not sure how much of a stream we'll have here. Okay, here we go. So there's our jog forward. The same trajectory that we animated. That'll be more evident when we get our turns brought into here. I'm going to download it. And in the background here, I'm going to rename this and move it into the right folder. Now, Oh, it's still downloading. Okay. Let's try that again. Oh, is Firefox... I mean, not Firefox. Chrome is warning me about the files. There we go. Okay. So, so I'm just going to read out the question here for everyone. So, what is your approach for learning this stuff? Unreal Anim in general. What % is Unreal docs? How much is tutorials? How much is it just figuring it out? I'm a rigger by trade and am trying to learn. All right, so really all I can speak to is the way that I learned and not much past that. Different things might work better for different people. But the approach that I took was a fair bit of YouTube tutorials in the start, though they left me unsatisfied, which is why I decided to come around and make my own character animation and locomotion tutorials. They just didn't feel as in-depth and as complete. I'd say where I really learned was just spending time in the engine, messing around with things. Like, the documentation helps. I probably would have been aided more by the documentation if I had actually spent time reading it, which I didn't really do. Let's see, ALS v3, so the Advanced Locomotion System version was free for a month. And whenever that was, I downloaded it, and I think I spent a couple of months thinking I would make a game and be able to like combine the Advanced Locomotion System version 3 with another free for the month third-person shooter template, and at the same time I was going through like a AI tutorial, which was pretty good. I did manage to tie those things together following a tutorial and then add the AI in. One of my earlier projects, I don't think I have it anymore. I learned a little bit about the animation stuff then, but not a lot. It was still completely foreign compared to the blueprints. A couple of months after I'd moved on from that, realized the scope was too big. The Advanced Locomotion version 4 released, and so that was new and exciting, and I immediately downloaded it, and I think there were a few tutorials at the time of people going through the system, showing how it worked. There was a Discord dedicated to it, and most of my learning at that point just became experimentation with the Advanced Locomotion System version 4, and then going off and trying to make my own systems. And aside from that, there were a couple of streams that were done by people who worked on the locomotion systems for Paragon at Epic, specifically on the distance matching, stride warping, those sorts of things, and a few Unreal Engine forum threads of other people trying to do distance matching. And so I naturally wanted to do distance matching too. So luckily, at the time, I was working with and still am working with Ryan, who you guys might know as the moderator in the Outcast Dev School Discord server. We've been working on making games together for quite a while now. So we were both trying to do distance matching, scouring forum threads, and Ryan made more progress there than I did. I learned a good amount from what he was learning. So it's definitely great to find other people who are trying to learn or to talk to about the stuff you're learning, the stuff you're trying to do. We did a lot of the learning of the character animation stuff, locomotion stuff together, trying different things out, using the Advanced Locomotion System as reference, the stuff Epic showed in live streams as reference, people's posts on the forums as reference, looking at like the different plugins that were out at the time, doing things that are in the engine now but weren't then back in 4, like orientation warping and stride warping. And so a lot of tinkering around. And if you want to see where I was at in that phase, you can go find the old Unreal Engine 4 distance matching tutorial series. I think they're still up on this channel, but be warned, they're probably terrible. I haven't watched those videos in a while. I know the system was terrible. I was trying to figure it out as I went. I had no idea how to actually do the distance matching. I tried it enough times that I figured, well, I could figure it out while making the series. And so you'll see that I, in fact, did not figure it out. And that's why those videos abruptly stopped. I think, or maybe the Lyra system came out. The Lyra starter project came out right then and there. And so I still barely knew what I was doing, but could make a half passable locomotion system. And then Lyra came out, and I learned a lot. I did those videos where I was walking through the Lyra locomotion system, trying to explain what I saw, but I was learning just as much as probably what I was teaching you guys. In a lot of cases, learning as I was recording the video. Unfortunately, I'd approach that a bit differently these days. So I guess the thing is that in my mind, I'm still learning this stuff. I've gotten better over time, but there's no better way to learn than to just jump in and try to do something that's above your skill level. Because either you're going to give up or your skill level is going to raise to the bar. So try to shoot for something just outside what you think you might be able to figure out. And if you get stuck, don't be afraid to ask other people for help. The community around Unreal Engine I found can be quite friendly, quite helpful. There are plenty of Discord servers. There's mine, of course, but there's also still an advanced locomotion system community Discord server that is fantastic, that I used to hang around in quite a lot, less so recently just because I haven't been using the advanced locomotion system recently. It's probably a more generalized stuff in there now, but so yeah, that is the process. Yep. So guys, you probably realize that I do tend to ramble. It's much more evident in these streams than in the videos where I can edit out. But yeah, so I enjoy the conversation and answering questions, but beware, I may go off on a 5-minute tangent if you ask something. May or may not be a valuable tangent. Be warned. So, if you're wondering, I have not renamed that animation or done any work in the background. I could have made so much progress. But here we are. So, I'm renaming, organizing that animation. I'm bringing it into the right folder. I just want to get this imported to... Oh, we know it worked. We downloaded it from Blender. Not from Blender, from Mojin. I guess I'm scatterbrained right now. Okay. So we know our process works. We've chucked it in Motorica, Mojin. So now I'm just going to try and bulk process these in Blender as quickly as possible. Okay, so I'm going to delete out the animation we imported and import the next one. And I need to get chat back up on my second screen. There we go. Yeah, I would definitely say my new tutorial series I've been doing in Unreal Engine 5 is much better by several orders of magnitude than what I was doing in Unreal Engine 4. Because I do think I kind of know what I'm doing well enough to teach it at this point. That was not the case then. And I'm looking forward to this new series because I'm going to try and fix everything I think I did wrong in the current ongoing series. And that's going to be a lot of fun to see what I can make better about my approach, about the system, about the way I go about making the videos from the ground up with how I plan out this upcoming series. So I'm looking forward to making that for you guys. So we did character turn 0 degrees. So now next one in line, I'm just going to do these in line to stay organized, is 45. There is a 22.5 degree turn, but we'll get to that when we get to that in the ordered list by, I think they're being sorted alphabetically. I don't think that window is showing on stream though. So now we brought the next one in. So all we need to do is reset our copy location and rotation modifiers. And there we go. I just wanted to check that the rotation was being copied properly. So now, file, export, FBX. And I'm exporting character turn 45. So that's done. Delete, import, and we're just repeating the process for all of those animations. Copying the name to make it easier. That's character turn 90. And now, again, just picking the newly imported animation. File, export, FBX, paste the name. And this won't take as long as I worried it would. Next, we're on to 135 degrees. Oh, I made a mistake cutting this animation. I'm going to grab a notebook here and start a list of the ones I'll need to redo. There we go. Okay, so we're going to skip past this and come back to it. And we're going to move on to, I think that's 22.5 degrees. No decimals in the names, so yeah, I don't think 225 is one of the angles that I did, so it must be 22.5. And what's great, I didn't really spend time or highlight it about this approach of generating the trajectories in Unreal for Mojin, is that we match our movement model exactly, which is one of the most important things in motion matching. Traditionally, I'm curious to see what Epic did, because they have some interesting stuff going on in Fortnite with the motion matching and like being able to adapt the same locomotion set to sliding on ice, different values. Like that all looks pretty great with what they showed during the State of Unreal Tech Talks. But in my own personal experience using motion matching, I haven't done it extensively in 5.4 yet, so maybe it's a lot better. But in 5.3, if you were off by 50 to 100 centimeters a second, it would have real trouble finding the right animations to play at the right times. But in general, the closer your movement matches your trajectory, your actual, the closer the root motion movement of the animation matches the movement of the character with the character movement component, the better a result you're going to get. Yep, that part did change for me in 5.4. So the trajectory now needs to be input into the pose history node instead of the motion matching node. So if I pull up Unreal, there it is. There's the pose history. I've bound the trajectory. And so there's less work we need to do now as well. And I'll go ahead and show that, because back in the 5.3 streams and downward, there was more work that needed to be done to get this trajectory in. All that's happening right now is that through an interface, or no, maybe not. Okay, I'm remembering a different project. So, Yep, we set a reference to our character, I guess. No, where are we getting that trajectory? That's a good question. Me. Because I do not see it. Here, if I go find reference. Okay, here we go. We get our character cast to our third person character blueprint, and we just set the trajectory reference. And then in the pose history node, all we do, we have our trajectory component, and we get the trajectory. We don't need to manually pull the trajectory out into like a 4 each loop or whatever the process was and do all sorts of different things to it, or convert the space. If we have a reference to the component saved, we can bind it really quickly and easily in 5.3, I think, but also 5.4, where this is now put into the post history node, which is nice because now for each instance of a motion matching node you have anywhere in your graph in your different states, you don't need to plug in the trajectory every single time. So the same place you define the bones you track, you also track your trajectory, which was really nice, but is a bit confusing at the start. It took me a good 15 minutes before I realized what was going on, and I was desperately searching for the trajectory pin in my motion matching node. I cannot remember if I exported this, so I'm just going to re-export. Okay. Oh, and I do not know if I switched my source back to Blender. I did not. There we go. All right, next we're on to 67.5 degrees. Okay, that's interesting, Peter. I ran into some issues in the 5.3. Yeah, I guess that's what I was going to speak to, but then realized I didn't do it that way in this project, was doing it through the blueprint interface. And for everyone watching, I ran into an issue with 5.3. You'll see in my video where I motion matched the Lyra animations, where I had to get the trajectory sent through from the character blueprint to the animation system through a blueprint interface. I couldn't just cast to the character and get the trajectory. I would just get like a null trajectory struct for some reason. And I'm not sure why that is. So that might still, in some cases, persist for 5.4. So for those of you who are having issues, you can go look at that video that I did on the channel. So now we're on to 112.5, I think. Yeah, I should be checking these because I did mess up one of them. Well, we'll know eventually which ones need to be redone if it's not just the 135. Huh. Oh, this is the other 135 degree here. Clicked the wrong file type. Oh. I hope that I'm not limiting myself to the start end keyframes. Oh, it does not look like that. It would not be fun to go through and redo all the start stops. I should have been checking that. We should have enough extra space now to get the full thing exporting. I'm hoping that it's just actually exporting the animated time and not the start stop time in Blender. Probably about, I was going to say 2/3, but we're under half way through processing these through Blender. Unfortunately. Next time I get a question, I'll do my best to keep working while I answer. Okay, we are at the halfway point and we're on to the negative angle animations or just the left hemisphere turns. Oh, that's why. I hit import instead of export. And I keep hitting that. It seems like I hit export when I want to hit import and import when I want to hit export. Okay. Almost did it again. I had 2 in here, so I want to make sure that last one was mapped properly to the right animation, the right root trajectory. Okay. If it wasn't, that just overwrote it. Okay, we're pretty much exactly at the 3/4 mark, 75% mark. There's that 180-degree one, which I'm just going to delete, and we're going to do that separately. But which one was that before? Now, I lost track of my progress through here. Well, if this was going numerically, alphanumerically, what's the last one I exported to the other folder? -1575. Okay. So we're going to import the one after 1575, which is 22.5 degrees. Oh, thank gosh. I was really scared we were on 24 FPS for a moment. But we're on 30, which is what we're supposed to be on. Phew. Only have 6. Nope. 3 more to go. Nice. Still gotta check and make sure they all come out correctly and that I didn't make mistakes cutting anything other than the 135 degree clockwise turn in Unreal. So we'll see. All right, second to last right here. 67.5 degree counterclockwise. Okay, finally. We have 90 degrees clockwise. All right, everyone, we made it. We're at the end of what's probably the first 1/3 to 1/2 of the work we need to do processing stuff in Blender. We have to process what we get out from Mojin before we can send it over into Unreal, unfortunately. How did I import? I'm pretty sure I did. I probably just hit import again on accident. Yep. Okay. Oh, but I didn't even constrain this. I hope I've been constraining this for the past however many times. Export, FBX, paste, and done. Okay. On to Mojin we go. So upload, choose file. So we're on character turn 45 degrees and upload. Now this is going to be a great time for conversation and questions if I keep saying if anyone has any, because it's going to be a fair amount of waiting between generations and me just renaming the files that get downloaded. But there is an example of a turn created with Mojin. It's a little fast. There's not great movement. So I'm going to change the seed and see if that changes things, or if maybe we should lower our turn speed in Unreal. If that's the case, I'll do that off stream and we'll move forward with these animations on stream. Okay, that's better. That's much better. Not perfect, but much better. Oh, you missed not a lot. I'm not sure how long you've been in the stream or not, but I did a walkthrough of what I have set up in the project thus far. If you caught the previous stream that I unlisted because the bitrate was terrible, and it kind of got cut off halfway through when it was an hour behind and I ended it. In that stream, I covered the development I'd done to create trajectories inside of Unreal Engine to then send to Mojin. Okay, so you just got here for most of the stream, maybe the first, well, how long have we been going? Oh, almost 2 hours. Okay, so for a while, it's just been tedious processing of FBX files exported from Unreal into Blender to retarget them. Really tedious stuff. Before that, I kind of did an overview of what is currently set up in the project I'm working in. But we're in the middle of tedious animation generation and processing land, wherever that is. So I probably hit this download button like 3 times now. No, okay, that was actually the first time. All right, that's fine. So now that has been downloaded, where were we? Okay, so I need to get my File Explorer open here so that I can be multitasking. Can I get chat up alongside it though? Okay, I can. I do apologize for the quality of audio when I turn away from the microphone to look at my second screen. I believe there is a bit of a drop off in the clarity of it. So I'll do my best to keep my head angled here, or to not talk when I have it angled the other way. Yep, pretty good day so far. Thanks for asking. Okay. Alright, I have myself situated here, so I should be able to go through this as quickly as Mojin allows. I did not use a mirror modifier when I made the trajectories. You probably could. That could definitely speed along the process, take some of the repeated actions out of it, and cut the time down when you're doing stuff in bulk like I am. But no, I just have manually created all the trajectories so far. So the turn on this one, I'm all right with. I think I might lower the rate of turning, because that just almost feels like forced. Like there's not enough time for it to make a good movement. I think it's currently set to 540 degrees a second. I'm currently working out a 5.4, the preview version that is available in the Epic Games launcher. So motion matching is definitely going to be the way to go about the sports games. I don't know how good the current implementation is going to be, but I know that that's what everything that involves characters running around and balls uses these days, is some form of motion matching. I can't really speak to the process, but that is going to be where to start, definitely. You probably don't need it. I'm sure, the games were around before motion matching was a thing, but Unreal should be able to support that, if not 5.4, I think, in another version soon. Yeah, I haven't really thought about motion matching with a third prop or tracking that, but if you track the ball with a bone, you probably could motion match for it. So there's one of our first examples of a stop start, which looks pretty good. Wait a second. If that was one of our first examples, why was the last... Did I make a mistake naming these? Uh-oh. It looks like I may have. Just a second. Yeah. I have to hit the keep. And it messed up because I tried to rename it before it was downloaded. So let's keep that file, rename. And I'm going to re-upload the 45-degree start stop. I think I just missed one. So there's 45-degree. So yeah, I think I skipped an animation, guys, in this upload process, and that threw me off a little bit. Yep, so I'm just going to re-download. wish Chrome wouldn't ask me if I wanted to keep the file every darn time. Delete the old turn 45, put in the new one. And also delete the start stop 45 because I don't trust that that is what I named it at all. But I could have just blanked out while I did that one. Or I could have just not watched it long enough. Okay, yeah, we have our start and our stop. I am going to fiddle with the seed on this one. See if I can get a more natural looking start. It's a pretty high acceleration, so it's going to be difficult for it to get the movement exact. Because I believe it is trained on motion capture data. That's probably going to be as good as I can get it. And that's, I think, good enough. Okay, so we're on to new animations now that I've sorted through that. So we did turn 90 start stop, but not turn 90. Where have I been? I'm just going to delete turn 90 start stop and make sure I do all these right in order. So, yep, that one looks fine. Keep and rename. Upload, choose file, copy the name, open, and upload. And again, I'm going to wait, watch, and see if I want to change the seed on this one. Not perfect, but that kind of cleanup could be done later. And something more finalized. It does look a bit better with that seed though, so I'll take that. Second seed seems like it's the best one for us this evening. It's random every time, but like, seems like I've been getting fixes for the little issues I've noticed. Overall, I think that motion looks pretty fantastic, and it's going to be great to see it all together in a mocap. I mean, not mocap, a motion matched system. Malformed input. I must have made a mistake with character turn 135 start stop. So let's go back to Blender. File, import, FBX, character turn 135 start stop.fbx. I don't think this is the one I messed up. Nope, this is the full trajectory. I may have had this skeleton selected when I exported instead of the Motorica skeleton, though. That's what I'd guess. So I'll re-export. Oh, and I did not switch to Blender, so I was talking through all that, but you guys were just seeing my browser window. So let's try that again. There we go. Seemed like it did something a bit weird with the rhythm of the movement. Yeah. Step right towards the start as it got to full velocity. Did like a half step there. So I'll try a different seed. That's much smoother. That's good. So there's deceleration at the end of these that I do not want on these animations, but I can clip that in Unreal some other time, maybe during the stream, maybe another time. I really just want to get these animations all into the editor and into a motion database. Okay, I like that start much better. There is a bit of a drift as it settles into position, but that'll be something we'll be able to change. I mean, just, you know, change, yeah, technically, that's not the word I'm looking for. Fix. So a little bit of processing is needed, but Motorica is continually updating their model. The results I'm getting now are much better than when they started, so I'm really looking forward to where they take this next. Another thing I want to do, I'm almost tempted to take a break here and go try it because it'll be fun to look at on stream. And I think it'll make for some really good coverage. Maybe good coverage might work a bit better for strafing, but I do just really want to see what would happen if I just use the take recorder and kind of randomly mess around with my inputs in Unreal. And essentially try to break the motion matching system. And then pass that in as a trajectory for Mojin. I think that would be fun and could give us like some good coverage too. And stress test it. I haven't been really looking at the last few super closely. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Not going to bother with the seed on this one. Almost halfway. And that's aside from the 135-degree one we need to update. I'm going to try to get a bit more of a natural curve. If I can get the left foot landing in the middle of the curve, that's going to look a lot better and be a bit more of a natural transition. Nope. Let's try that again. One more time. Let's see what it does. Okay, I'm happy with that one. I guess it is 112.5. Yeah, because we're not doing 11.25. That would be like 32 directional movement. Ooh, that one got cut shorter. But that's fine. That's probably how short I'm going to end up cutting these in the end anyway. So I don't want a bunch of redundant coverage for the motion matching system to have to search through and match with every frame. Don't know if I'm going to go for much longer than another hour tonight. Because that would put me at 11 o'clock p.m. It's 9:48 right now. We'll see where we get in an hour. Foot placement is not ideal. That looked like it might be a bit better. I want to see. Yep, I'll take that. I'll take that. Oh, that was a bit of a jump in angle. Like, it's a fault of the trajectory. The trajectory seems a bit weird on this one. I'm going to make a note of this one as a trajectory to rerun in Unreal. This is 45, start, stop, negative. And I'll use this one for the time being. I apologize, I bumped my mic. I'm not sure if that came through on stream or if it got filtered out. Okay. So it was 45, start, stop. Okay, so 90. I think we're about 3/4 of the way through. We still have our 180 degree ones to set up in Unreal and our 135 to redo. Well, that one came out good on the first try. And we still have to get these all into Unreal as well. We're going to at least get that far, seeing all of these in Unreal with motion matching. Let's see. Where are we? That was 90. Start, stop. No, 90. Not start, stop. So we're on to 90 start, stop. Okay. Gosh. Could have made this a bit easier and did only half of these in one batch, but it'll be a lot of coverage to work with. It's definitely the least fun part of the process. I'm going to see if I can get it to start from the other foot on the 90-degree start right there. Yep, there we go. So all of these turns are in the correct direction. What I'd like to eventually try is to get some trajectories where the character does a spin. And that might be especially good for these harsh angles, to do a back foot pivot, essentially. That would feel right and would almost be what I would expect for this one. It kind of depends on which foot is coming down. But I want to get that coverage as well. Potentially for all of the angles. That might be a bit... Okay, maybe just 90-degree and greater might be all I'd want to get that for, but I definitely want to get that coverage, but that will mean some changes to, or some additions to my AI controller. Yep, that is a good point in relation to the mirroring and the preference for a starting foot. I didn't consider it at the time, but yeah, I agree. We can pretend that I thought of that. And I'm going to try to get the other foot for this one. These turns seem so much better if they start with the left foot. There we go. We're almost there, guys. Got the weird jitter again, so I'll rerun this animation. That's better. So the last time I did anything like this, I didn't have all these animations cut up. I actually did them all in the same kind of single long take dance card that I might have had to chop up into a couple of segments. So it wasn't as tedious here, but it's going to be... This is going to be better overall, I think. And yeah, this has given us 8 directional. No, is it 8 directional or is it... No, this is 16 directional movement as opposed to 8 directional. So this might be, too much coverage, which is probably, not always a good thing. I want to reduce that, but if I can reduce the extra straightaway movement and just really isolate the turning on these, then that's going to be useful. And we may, when it comes to like getting snaking and any, that's coverage I want too, is a curve that we exit into a straight. Because right now there's the spirals for curves, but no exiting, going from curve to a straight and doing the snake. The sine wave, that's going to give us that, going from one curve to another. Maybe not the sine wave, but I might need to keep that sine wave the way it is and do a dedicated snake spline generator. Because that is going to be some great coverage, probably outside the scope of the time that I have tonight. But maybe a project for the next stream. I want to continue to do these streams on at least a weekly basis. Also ensure that I'm consistently putting good time into working on this system as well. So I'll try and come up with a consistent schedule for I almost said screaming. For streaming these. At least once a week. That's certain. At least, okay, I'm going to add on to that. Once a week, if I'm not too bogged down in trying to get a video out for that week. You guys have probably seen I have not been great about posting weekly videos. I've been working a lot on the Dev School locomotion system. The current tutorial series is not motion matched. To wrap that up on the back end, I've been working on additive layering, overrides for the right arm, left arm, hand IK, all of that kind of stuff. Working with, I think, even virtual bones on that. So that's about finished, and I'll start making videos soon. I'm definitely going to try and fill the gaps between videos at least with these streams. Yeah. All right, so that's 2:25 start stop. So am I uploading? Gosh, where am I? I totally lost track. So 22.5 degrees start stop negative is what's showing here, which means we're not uploading a new one. I mean, this isn't what we're trying to upload now. We're trying to upload the one afterwards. So that's 67.5 degrees, counterclockwise or negative. It's easier to type in than CCW, I guess. Gonna try redoing this one. And again. We're gonna get good foot placement at some point with this. So I'll just keep going until we get it. That was not good foot placement. I think that was a little bit worse. No, I have not improved the jumping yet. I'll add that to my list. I'll actually write it down in my notebook that I've been keeping off to the side here. This has just been for animation stuff related to this right now, but if I write it down, I'll remember and move it over to the right list. Make jumping better. There we go. I do recall you mentioning it previously, and I do want to bring that series to a satisfying conclusion and not just leave it hanging moving as I move on to 5.4. So I want to get it working for NPCs. That's one of the next top things on my priority list for it. And then after that, it's really digging in and learning what I need to learn for replication to get that replicated properly and working on multiplayer. I'm going to copy this seed because it's the best I've gotten so far, but I'm going to try again. So what I'm finding in this experiment, I think, is that in some instances, it isn't great at matching the Unreal Engine trajectory curve. Something that was a bit smoother overall would probably work a bit better. So I'm thinking a lot of that is just coming from the turn rate. And so what I'll probably do is revise that later on. Maybe take it down to 360 degrees. Okay, cool. I'm glad to hear it works on NPCs because I'll admit I have not even tried that yet. So My plan was to check that, and if it didn't work, to do whatever modifications were needed to make it work for both players and NPCs, and to make that a video. While not getting too deep into any sort of behavior tree logic. But yeah, replication is something that I still definitely want to do for that system. I have the gate switching replicated. I haven't done a video on that yet. It's just getting like the pivot replicated, and I had someone recommend a fix for that to me in the Discord server. I haven't implemented that yet, but I'm hoping that I get the same results as him and it works. Yeah, our rotation rate is 540 degrees a second right now. And so Motorica, Mojin, I guess either term applies. Mojin would technically be correct here. Seems to be having a bit of trouble matching that with its data. I was trying to say data set, but I almost said data capture. It's data set of motion capture. Okay, that's where the capture came from. Feel a bit better now. It's data set of motion capture data. I think I got the other one of these to work. The non left turning, the right turning one. Okay, I'm going to take this one. I think it's as good as it's going to give me. And I'll try 360 degrees another time. Probably not soon because I do not want to redo all this work. The last 2 hours. I do not want to be in for another 2 hours of animation processing because we have at least probably 30 minutes more of animation processing to do to get these into Unreal. And I definitely will not, well, not definitely, but there will probably be times where I work on this when I don't stream, in between streams, so I might not be able to pick up exactly where I left off in a lot of cases. But in time, there will definitely be a tutorial series dedicated to this full process. I want to provide the animations, but I'm going to show you guys the full setup for how I get to the point where I'm generating these through Mojin myself as well. So I'm just continuing to roll the dice for the seed on this one to try and get foot placement of the left foot right at the turn point. So I think that'll help to smooth out the motion. Because the lean the character goes into definitely isn't smooth here. Which is totally understandable. I think it does a fantastic job that it keeps up with the trajectories I'm throwing at it. I'm definitely not throwing easy trajectories at it by any means. So it'll be a bit of a back and forth process to find what... Oh, did I already download this? Did I seriously just keep re-rolling the seed on one that I just downloaded already? That's funny. Okay, move on to the next one. That was 675. The trajectories aren't perfect. There's a bit of like a wiggliness to it, which might be caused by the recording rate in Unreal or any frame drops, because I did record all this while I'm streaming, so I don't know how much that's affected my frame rate in Unreal Engine. I haven't checked that. So it might be useful for me to adjust that turn right and redo these off stream. I'll probably do that sometime between this and the next stream, I think. I usually put stuff on to listen to during this kind of tedious work, but I'm streaming right now, so feels a bit more tedious than it would have to be. Though I have enjoyed the conversation, it is keeping me sane while I go through and do all these animations, guys. I think we just have a couple more to go, 2 or 3. Yep, 2 more. So this here is the second to last. Yeah, this is the situation where a back foot spin pivot would fit really well. I really want that coverage, because this is just a unnatural way to rotate at this angle. I think if I was running at that speed and trying to maintain the speed, I would do a completely different type of pivot there. So this is just unnatural without really slowing down. Like, you're not going to see this kind of motion in real life. It's going to be the spin. It's probably going to be as good as I'm going to get this one. And lowering that rotation rate is really going to help this out. I have not tested these continuous turns yet, and that's why I haven't lowered that already. I guess the semi pivots, they're not 180 degree, but they would still be considered pivots. These I have not tested yet. I've done the stop and the start, but not the continuous motion. So of course the speed of the turn and how it adjusts to that isn't evident there. Okay, we're on the last one now. Awesome. Oh, cool. It's only 10:10. So this has not taken as long as I thought it would. And I guess so. I mean, it's been 30 minutes since I last checked the time. So hopefully we can get back into Unreal by 10:30 to start testing this stuff. And then between this stream and next week's stream, I will go through and redo these animations. Do a second pass on the movement settings. Okay, I'll go with this one. I have not done a lot of work with Mover yet. I've looked at it. I looked at some of their samples in a source build of 5.4 before they launched the preview. I haven't looked at it since the preview. And there's a lot going on, and I couldn't really make too much sense of it in the time that I spent looking at it. So I'm looking forward to documentation. But I will probably try to look at it again. I would like to use it with this motion matched system, actually. It should have backwards compatibility with the character movement component, which is why I am, it's why I'm not worried about reusing the same animations. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh, yeah, that is interesting. It'd be nice if it would stand still. Huh. I actually wonder if there would be a way to set it up with enhanced input so that if you're pressing A and D, it's tracking that separately and you can detect that. Because you could probably, if you wanted to, you could definitely do that at the input processing stage. But it's great if Mover does that automatically. Okay, so while talking, I totally copied the wrong name to rename this animation. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're now on to the next processing step in Blender. Hooray. And that was certainly sarcastic. But it will be worth it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go through these one by one and import them. What we're looking at is not what I meant to import. Let me try that again. And I've somehow lost track of one of the animations. The forward-facing one. I'll have to regenerate that, I guess, unfortunately. Darn, that sucks. Oh, wait, no. I have that here. I just named it a separate way. So here's our output from Mojin. And it's raw bone form. And there's a few steps we need to do with each of these. First, we need to rename the root, but what to, I do not remember. So let's check that. And the character here for Mojin, I actually just got by getting their plugin and compiling it into 5.3 at the time, and then this stuff just carried over to 5.4. I haven't tried their plugin yet. I might have just actually pulled the files directly from their plugin content folder in. Now let's see if this loads. I love it when these progress bars get stuck in 100%. Wonder how many years it's been since I've seen a real progress bar. That isn't just an animation that finishes and then you're at 100% and waiting for it to actually load. You'd think in an environment like Unreal, it wouldn't be afraid to show you a real progress bar. Oh, and you guys can't see Unreal, can you? Oh, yep. Gosh, darn. You guys didn't even see Blender. I've been forgetting. So I pulled the file into Blender. I'm in edit mode there. And I'm waiting for something to load that I'm checking on in Unreal Engine. But this is the animation we got for just the forward jog, which is coverage I have, but this is the longer sequence, so this will be good to have. And so we need to rename the root to match what it is in the motoric rig in Unreal. So I guess I'll just, there we go. Now we're in Unreal Engine. Oh, and you guys can't see the progress bar because it's not part of the window, but it's there. And it's been at 100% for the last minute and a half at least. Maybe I should have opened the skeleton instead of the skeletal mesh. I really wonder what's going on though. This is like the one project that I actively work in that is on a solid state drive instead of a hard drive. And this happens. Huh. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm going to close out of Unreal and open it again and hope that this loads more quickly. Yeah, I think Unreal is just frozen up on me. It's been a while since that's happened. Maybe it's because I'm in the preview. There's nothing I want to save, so I'm just going to force it to stop. There we go. Okay. Let's try it again. This time I'll try for the skeleton. Wow. There we go. Instant 100%, and we may be stuck again. It's funny as I think I actually might remember the name of the root bone for this. It's not root, of course. I think it's reference. I'm going to give that a shot. Don't know why Unreal is doing this to me as I'm trying to open this skeleton. I've opened skeletal meshes and skeletons in the preview for 5.4, so don't know what's happening there. So I'll restart that, and in the meantime, yeah, I'm pretty certain it's reference. All lowercase. Other than that, I want to disconnect the pelvis from the root so that it can actually move up and down. And finally, back in object mode, I want to apply the rotation. Now I can export it. And I'm going to see if I can import it into Unreal without issue before I repeat the process for the other animations. Are we just going to get stuck on loading bars tonight? Darn. All right, yeah, it looks like we're just getting the editor to freeze up completely when we move a file, when we load a file. I don't know what's going on. It might be something a computer restart could fix. I haven't run into this issue in the preview yet, but I might call the stream here because of it. Otherwise, I'd just be debugging this for the next 30 minutes or so that I have left. Oh, yep. Sure thing, Maxim. I missed your message. And I appreciate it and glad that my videos have helped you. Always nice to hear that the stuff I've been trying to put up onto YouTube has been helpful. And I'll do my best to continue to put out even better tutorials. Yeah, everyone, I am going to end the stream out here. The editor is freezing up on me, and I'm going to have to look into that. But it is getting to be pretty late here. So, unfortunately, we haven't gotten to the most exciting part in this stream, but there should be some more exciting stuff to get to in the next one. Hopefully, I'll be at least well into the process of having that full set of at least the same animations here. That I've been working on here with a slower turn rate so that we can work on implementing them and then maybe working out the logic and math for some more preset spline paths for the other coverage that we'll want to get for forward facing. And once that's done, it'll be on to strafing, which will be a fair amount of coverage. More complicated in some ways, but less complicated in others. And by then we should know, what kind of approach we're taking in terms of animation length, coverage, how they're connected together in looping, the kind of work that needs to be done there, and the kind of state machine locomotion structure we're going for in the animation graph itself. So easier said than done, but I'm looking forward to trying to make some relatively quick progress on the system during these streams. So I'll see you all around. And I'm going to go ahead and end things out here. And if I end streaming, I might cut this off. So I'm just going to wait and listen in on my own stream. And end it out when it catches up. So you guys might end up hearing a bit of this in the video on demand.